Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Play the Tape. I am your host, Derek J. Fields. Listen, all my interviews are good. All my guests are fantastic. You know me, I love getting all perspectives, all walks of life, all experience, strength, and hope. And that's what we have here today for you again. My guest coming in today is a mother, a wife, a professor. My guest today is very passionate about support and resources for children and adults with exceptionalities through special education. She has a bachelor's in science and special education with an emphasis on behavior disorders from the University of Wisconsin, and master's of education in special education with an emphasis on varying exceptionalities from the University of South Florida, St. Petersburg, and a PhD with an emphasis on special education from the University of South Florida, Tampa. My guest today is a professor of special education at ECU, East Carolina University, here in Greenville, North Carolina. Her specialties include classroom management and teaching general education to teachers how to provide accommodations, modifications for students with exceptionalities. Her publications and presentations includes research on co-teaching in higher education using virtual stimulations and a classroom management preparation and accommodations and modifications for individuals with exceptionalities in general education settings. The Council for Exceptional Children awarded Dr. Vortecki the Clarissa Hug International Teacher of the Year in 2001. Karen and Kevin Vortecki have been married for 33 years. Star Wars children of Darth and Luke. Darth passed away at the age of 26 on April 22nd, 2022, from an overdose. He struggled with mental health and addiction issues, but he had a loving heart and a generous soul, and his family misses him very much. Luke is currently 24 years old and recently graduated from ECU University. My guest today is someone that I am so thankful and so blessed that she's here to share her testimony, to share her experience, strength, and hope. And I'm looking forward to what she has to say. As someone who suffers from mental health and substance use disorder, I am blessed to be here, and blessed that I too have loving parents that care for me, just like Karen and Kevin do for their children. Without further ado, my guest today, Miss Karen Vortecki. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Hey, it's a pleasure being here. I thank you for being here. I know this isn't um, easy, and my condolences to you and your family for the loss of your son.
Thank you.
Yes, um, I always let my guests know, like we talked off air, you can start and share wherever you want to share. This is your time, your testimony, your story. And again, if there's any questions that I may ask that you're not there to answer just yet, I respect that. I always let people know, my guests know, and I want my viewers and my listeners to know that this is a safe place, safe space, a safe place. And we're not trying to trigger. What we're trying to do is educate, because on here on Play the Tape, it's a platform of support, community, advocacy, and education when it comes to mental health, when it comes to substance use disorder, when it comes to suicide prevention, when it comes to overdose, when people passing. So, full disclaimer, I always do this. I always forget. Listen, I am not a licensed certified clinician. I am not a certified drug and alcohol counselor, but we do and we'll have them on the show. So I want to always put that out there, because I can't, this isn't therapy, but it is a way for people to come on the show and give their experience, strength, and hope. So, Miss Karen, I'm going to stop talking, and the floor is yours. Yes, ma'am.
Great. Um, yes. As you said, my husband Kevin and I have been married 33 years. We both grew up in Wisconsin. I met my husband when I was 16 and he was 19. So, in many respects, we grew up together. And learned a lot together and fell in love and um, grew a life together. Um, we, as you said, we had the Star Wars children, Darth Harrison and Luke Anakin. And Darth was a wonderful big brother to Luke. And Luke looked up to him and loved him. Um,
How did that come about? How did the who made the decision between you and Kevin to be like, okay, we're doing the dark, we're doing the Star Wars kids? I found that very cool when I read that.
um, Kevin was the big Star Wars fan from the get go. And I quickly learned to love the Star Wars universe through Kevin. When we were when we knew that we were having a son with Darth, we were looking at names and we wanted to do a unique boy's name, and we are looking at different names, and we decided on Darth and thought that that would be a great name. And then we thought Darth Harrison for Harrison Ford, and
Yeah.
um, luckily, and then when you have a Darth, you have to have a Luke.
Yes,
So
you do.
Luke is Luke Anakin. So we Darth and Luke.
Yeah.
Uh, and luckily, both boys loved Star Wars as well. We weren't sure and if they would like their names and like Star Wars. And luckily, the whole family loved Star Wars, and it worked out great. And we also weren't sure if other kids would understand Star Wars or know what their names were. But there was a rebirth of Star Wars and new movies, and it's of course more popular than it ever was. So everybody understands their names, so it all worked out in the end.
I know that's right. I found that very cool. I was like, I have to ask her who came up with that, who started that. But yeah, that's Kevin right there. But yeah, that's a blessing. That's beautiful how that started.
And my parents had never seen the movie, and my they didn't know who Darth was. So when Darth was born, he was born December 15th, and on Christmas Day, the Star Wars movie was playing, and my mom had seen it was on TV, and Darth came on screen, and somebody said something about Darth in the movie, and my mom called us and said, "Is that who you named my grandson after?" And Kevin said, "Yes." Mom wasn't so sure about that at that point.
Yes, we did, and Luke as well. Yes, we did.
That's right. That's right.
That how was it? How was the relationship growing up? How was the family dynamic growing up with it? It seemed very loving and very together and just supportive with you, your husband, and your two boys. And how was the family dynamic growing up? How did they treat one another? How did everyone interact together?
It was great. Kevin was a stay-at-home dad until both boys were in kindergarten. It wasn't our plan initially, but when Darth was born and we started looking at options for daycares or babysitters or what we were going to do, he said, Kevin quickly said there was no way that he could have anybody else watch his baby. So he quickly said he was going to stay at home, and so we decided to go the stay-at-home dad route, which he says to this day is the best job he's ever had, and he's never regretted that. So that was a great decision. Um, so he did that, and then when Luke was born, Darth was 3 when Luke was born. When Luke was born, he was in the intensive care for 3 weeks. When Luke was born, he had trouble breathing, and he had a trach for the first 3 years of his life, and he was born deaf, and he had a lot of medical issues. So when he came home from the hospital, Luke had 24-hour nursing for the first 3 years. So he had a lot of complications, which added a lot of complexities to the family dynamics. So Kevin is a stay-at-home dad with the 24-hour nursing, and
Hmm.
Darth, that was a lot to take in for the family, but they all adjusted to that. Um, Darth was a great big brother to Luke. With Luke being deaf, a lot of individuals who are deaf have a hard time learning how to read and doing some things that are more natural for others. But Luke always wanted to do whatever it was that Darth was doing. And so Darth was reading and Darth was doing this and Darth was doing that. And Luke always was going to do whatever it was that Darth was doing. So as Darth got older, Darth was playing the trumpet. Luke was bound and determined he was going to play the trumpet.
Hmm.
Darth was in band, Luke was going to be in band. So he always stretched Luke to want to do whatever his big brother was doing. So that was very helpful for Luke.
With when it came to your son Luke at that time, when with all the medical issues that he had, and did that was that what stimulated you? Is that what inspired you to be into special education? Was that one of the reasons why, or were you already in special education with finding resources for children and adults with exceptionalities? Was that already pre-Luke, or was that because of Luke?
I was already in special education. Um, when I grew up, my brother, who's a year older than me, he was in special education growing up. He had attention deficit hyperactivity disorder,
Me too. Me too. Hmm.
and he had some learning disabilities. And I could see when he was in school how some teachers worked better with him than others, and how he struggled some years more than others. So I wanted to a get some answers about my brother and how I could help him more, and b how I could help other individuals like my brother. So I was already in special education. Um, I think it might have helped my husband, who went into special education after Luke. Um, but I was already in special education at that time.
Okay. Yeah, because I see that we had talked before that your husband has a master's degree in special education and behavior administration. That and works for a local school district. That's fantastic. Listen, I should have, and I apologize. Listen, I thank you for your service. I thank my teachers because I love my teachers, especially those who care. I stress humility and humanity, especially when it comes, okay, of course, to the mental health, to the substance use, to those counselors and psychiatrists and those rec therapists and those doctors and those nurses, but also to my teachers that care, because this takes a special heart that y'all have to make that type of sacrifice and to go in that type of direction of in education for those with exceptionalities. I appreciate that. And I say thank you for your service, you and your husband. So thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Absolutely. You. So let's fast forward. And I dealt with mental health and substance use. I, and I'm thankful that I'm still here. I've had suicidal ideologies, suicide attempts, couple overdoses myself, but I was fortunate to still be here today. And again, if I ask any questions that are pressing that are not, you're not there to answer, just please let me know, and I definitely will respect that. I get it, and I'll move on. What was what did Darth deal with mentally that led to the substance use? I know for me, I had a lot of trauma. Don't get me wrong, I grew up in a loving home with two loving parents, but at the same time, my dad had his own ACE score, which adverse childhood experiences, and a lot of us have ACE scores, some higher than others. And he was a 27-year vet in the military, went to Desert Storm, and he had his issues when it came to his mother and his dad. He was adopted and only child at that time when he was adopted. And alcohol was very heavy for him because back then PTSD, all these mental health processes and all this mental health process that we have and progression that we have wasn't as heavy back then, back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s and 80s as it is now. So I had a trauma, childhood trauma, combat trauma, being in the military, couple tours, and then not processing that, not having anyone to talk to, not being able to express that anger or that frustration or that hurt, I would use substances. I would also use activities of pornography and sexual gratification, and on top of that, couple that with drugs. Those things numb me, made me not feel but feel at the same time, partying and just want to escape. And the reason that I'm giving these examples is because just wanted to see with Darth the mental health and how did it start? How did it escalate into the substance use? And how did, as a mom, because my mom loves when I do interviews with other parents, especially moms, because she is, I got to interview her too, because I need to. So, but if you will, where did it start and how did it start? And when it did, how did you and your husband and even Luke, how did y'all respond to that?
Yeah, I really like that this podcast focuses on mental health and substance use, um, because I really think that they're intertwined, and I think
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to separate them, especially for Darth, and so much so that his psychiatrist had a hard time separating those two. Definitely, he had a combination of both. Um, it's hard to say for him. We think, um, I know that the drugs started as early as high school. I'm not sure if it was before that point. We were not aware of it in high school necessarily, but I know talking to him as an adult that he told me that he was doing it in high school. I'm not sure if it was earlier than that. Um, he, um, I think he had some serious mental health issues. He was not willing at the time that he could get diagnosed to stop the drugs long enough to get a proper diagnosis of his serious mental illnesses. Um, so that was difficult for the psychiatrist. So
Mm-hmm.
he did a lot of self medicating with the drugs at the time. Um, but I know that they definitely were related for him. His traumas and things like that, he had different perceptions than we did of his perceived traumas. So if you interviewed Darth, it would be a different interview than if you interviewed us
Mm-hmm.
about that. So I'm not really sure. Um, and I think that kind of has to do with some of his mental illness as well. Um, but
It I agree with you as far as the intertwine, because I definitely believe that. Sometimes when I go speak, I tell some of the women and men when I go to hospitals, institutions, and do H&I, uh, hey, sometimes it's hard to differentiate between the mental health and the substance use. Like sometimes I just don't know, and I agree with you. It's very very difficult, and my psychiatrist and my therapist do have a hard time, especially in the beginning, because I didn't know what I didn't know. We don't know what we don't know until we know it. And I get the perception part of it because uh, my brother would have a different perception than I have a different perception. And then my parents would have different perceptions from where me and my brother have. And I understand that. Uh, is was it when it did show itself? Was it hard to accept at the time that, okay, man, my baby might, there's something wrong here? Because it will show. I know for me, and I always keep it on me, my mental health, especially my substance use, will show itself eventually. I only can hide it for so long until it'll start to show in my behavior, my actions, my thoughts, my speech, and my outer appearance. when it did reveal itself, or when Darth was like, okay, because I don't know, did he ever come to you and your husband be like, okay, mom and dad, there's something wrong here that I think I need help with?
Yeah, I think the biggest struggle was we would want him to get like the self-medicating with illegal drugs. Like we would want him to um, see a psychiatrist and get the the balance with prescription medication to balance him with what he needed prescribed from a doctor. And he had a hard time with that. Um, Sometimes he would try and he would have awful side effects and he would have to go through many different types of trials and errors of trying to find the right combination of medication. And I understand that that can be frustrating.
Yes.
Um, and so a lot of times that wouldn't work. And one time he was fortunate to find one that did work for a while, and that was great. And then insurance stopped paying for it, or something happened, and he couldn't use that particular one anymore. And he had to start the whole process all over again, and he gave up. And that was really unfortunate. Um, and for the most part, he just chose not to go that route and would use illegal substances instead. And that was the frustrating part is seeing that um, he did need medication and that he was choosing to use illegal drugs instead of medication. That was the frustrating part.
Yeah, I know it can be. I know as a father, and I talk about my baby girl a lot because my daughter, because of her, as she gets older, she'll be 21. Um, coming up should be, well, when this comes out, she'll be 21, and she's an adult, and I've learned that 18 is in our society is classified as an adult. And once they turn 18, you can't really force them to go get psychiatric treatment. It's their decision. And sometimes that can be frustrating. You're absolutely right. That can be hard, especially when you know and you see it not only in them, but okay, I've seen this movie play out before. I know for me, like, baby girl, listen, your dad is right there with you. I haven't walked in your shoes, but we've taken similar steps.
Yep.
We've taken similar steps. So I suggest. So yes, I'm with you, Miss Karen. That can be a very frustrating, because as parents, we want our children, we want to protect our children, we want nothing but the best for our children, and we want to be able to snatch them from the grips of death or any circumstances that may harm them. When I know this is I wanted to talk about. I know the grief process is very hard for each and every one of y'all, and when it comes to that grief aspect of it, where where can people go? I know that you are, and correct me if I'm wrong, you are involved in an organization called Grasp. What is that about? When it Because your son passed over for an overdose. And we don't have to get into the specifics of that and how that happened or what the substance was. We don't have to do that. But I know he passed April 22nd of 2022. And I know that grieving process is a long time. But I wanted to ask you, what is GRASP, and how are your involvement in that? And how do you, I know it's a couple questions, and how do you implement that or give that resource to the community of Pitt County right now?
So when Darth passed, my husband really wanted he and I to go to a grief support group um, together, and we had a hard time finding one that would be a good fit for us. And he found Grasp online, and there was we thought that there was a chapter in Pitt County, but it wasn't active at the time. Um, and Grasp is a grief support group for people who've lost a loved one, specifically due to substance use. be it alcohol or drugs, and it can be an overdose or anything related to the substance use. And so he was really seeking that out, um, and was really disappointed that we couldn't use that service. So we were not able to benefit from that at that time. So after Darth had been gone for a year, I decided, since we really could have used that and it wasn't available to us, I thought, well, it wasn't the sort of flag I wanted to carry, but because it wasn't available in our community, I thought this is something that I could do to provide to others
Hmm.
who could benefit from that service. So I started a grass support group. We meet the first Thursday of every month in Pitt County from 6 to 7 p.m. Um, and there's a website called grasshelp.org. That's their national website. And so our group can be found on that website. And my information, my email, and my cell phone number can be found there. So if anybody's interested in attending the group, they can contact me. It's free to attend. They just have to register ahead of time. And then I'll give them the information about where the meeting is, just to make sure that they're the right fit for the group, that they've lost somebody due to substance abuse, um, and give them the information. We meet in Simpson right now, but it's always in Pitt County.
Hmm.
Um, there's people don't have to share any information during the meeting if they don't want to. So if they're concerned about that, they can talk about their loved one if they would like, but they can be quiet during the meeting and just listen. It's completely up to them how they want to participate during the meeting.
I appreciate that. That's good. That's always important to state, because a lot of people are like, oh man, do I got to go talk and share? Nope. Only
Right.
thing you have to do is just come, listen, get what you need, and talk to people after if you want to. But we always suggest just keep coming back. Just
Right.
keep coming back. So,
And it's a peer-to-peer group. Everybody there has lost somebody from substance use. And like you, I'm not a licensed therapist. And we can refer people to
mhm.
licensed therapists, and we have resources that we share at the meeting, and we have a lending library that we share, and we have connections to other community resources and items like that. But it's just an opportunity to share with peers.
On the outline that we have for the show, um, which I appreciate. Thank you. My wife was like, she got an outline. I was like, she got 3 degrees. She should have an outline. uh, so the connection between grief and addiction, that section um, is very. I would love for you to elaborate on what you mean, because you said there's no set time for how long grief lasts, and then people will experience grief for as long as it takes them to adjust to the changes of their life that are associated with that loss. What does that mean for you, your husband, and Luke moving forward, as that grieving still is? And I'm assuming, but I should ask, are y'all still in that grieving state?
Yes, it's really interesting, and I see a therapist. My husband is not currently seeing a therapist. I see a therapist once a week at this point, and I find it very helpful. I've got a great counselor who um, I'm very thankful for. Um, and my son Luke sees a therapist every 2 weeks. And Luke focuses on other issues with his therapist. He focuses more on his life goals and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so we each deal with our grief in different ways. Um, we have memorial garden. We call it a reflection garden in our backyard. Um, Luke wanted to plant forget me not flowers. That was his idea for Darth. So we have forget me not flowers planted back there. My parents donated a bench, and we have a plaque on the bench that has Darth and his friend Taylor's name on it. Um, we lost Taylor a year before Darth. Taylor was Darth's age, and he committed suicide the year before. When Taylor committed suicide, we had already planted a tree for him, so we have Taylor's tree back there. So my husband spends a lot of time in the reflection garden, and he'll sit on the bench and talk to Darth. Um, so we all kind of grieve in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I've learned through therapy that grief just goes through different phases at different times, and the phases go back and forth and not sequential, and um, different ways. Um, but the connection between grief and addiction, I've really learned a lot. I've I've done a talk at Walter B. Jones Rehabilitation Center, and I've learned through Darth's friends who um, were in addiction with him, um, who've really grieved Darth's loss
Mm-hmm.
and have struggled even more with addiction since Darth's passing. Just the strong connection between grief and addiction. And so that just kind of led me into more research with um, how much people who are in addiction, who know people who've lost their lives to the addictions, and um, the cycle of grief and addiction. And I'm in other grief support groups who the facilitators have taught me more about that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so just I like your focus on hope and um, the theme of that, and that's another theme that I've learned more about is um, hope through recovery as well.
Absolutely. I want to commend you for taking up that flag that you never thought that you would take up. And that takes a lot of courage, Miss Karen. That takes a lot of strength, especially just being a year removed. I commend you for that. And what a blessing you are, because my condolences, and we don't ever want to lose anyone that we love in that type of way. But now you are a beacon of hope as you learn from therapy, from peer support, from grasp, from all the things that you do, from going to speak. You are educating and advocating and supporting and building a community in the community for, hey, listen, this thing is real and it happens. And I like how you talked about it. Hold on one second. On the part where it says values of grief groups, is the abnormal is normalized. When hearing others share bereaved people, realize that their experiences are not so unique, that they are not losing their mind. In the early stage of bereavement, they often do not know what normal is. The group will validate the normal parts of bereavement. The me too feeling can be welcome relief. I appreciate that. I think that's where the hope comes in. When I read that and you just spoke about that, that's where the groups, the support, the advocacy, the education. Oh, you've been through that too? Yes. How did you get through that? These are some things that I did. May work for you, may not, but they're on the table. So, getting back to the connection part, it said right here, one second. Okay. Individuals may attempt to cope with the overwhelming pain of their loss by trying drugs, turning to drugs or to alcohol. That is true too. And that was something that never happened for you. You turning into the depression, you turning into the guilt, you turning into the alcohol or the drugs? What kept you or is keeping you mentally secure or stable as you carry this flag for those who lost someone to substance use?
Yeah, I'm really fortunate. Alcoholism runs in my uh, family, and obviously drug use with Darth, and alcohol um, in my family is definitely a strong trait, um, and in Darth's genes as well. So I've never liked the taste really of alcohol. So I think I'm just blessed with that. I have my own mental health um, issues. So I have my own, I see a psychiatrist, and I have my own I, mental health medication, and I have bipolar. And so um, I have counseling, and um, but luckily I've never had an issue with drugs or alcohol. Um, I'm thankful for that.
Mhm.
Um, uh, so I think I can relate a little bit to Darth with the mental health, um, and to understand uh, what the problem is. I don't have a good idea as to what the solutions are. I can understand some of the complexities of the issues, and I'm hopeful for solutions in the future. I know there's a lot of students at ECU that I talk to that are in all kinds of fields, that are going to be doctors, and are going to be counselors, and are going to be that are going into all kinds of fields, and they're trying to solve the drug crisis, and the this crisis, and the that crisis. And I always say, go for it, because
Right.
I get the problem, I just don't get the solutions.
You had talked about in in the outline that you had put together and for the show, and I think this is very great that you did that, and I appreciate it. One thing that stuck out to me is you tell people to be gentle with their feelings and their thought process and avoid judgment. Don't put don't put the I should have or if only on yourself. When did that come? Because that to me that looks like a process, a part of and a process of healing. Okay, Derek. Okay, Karen. Listen, I need to be gentle with myself. I need to understand that I don't need to judge. I don't need to put the I should haves or the if I onlys. Did that come from the learning and the expertise of different your therapists and peer support and grasp and the combination of those things? When did that start? Because I think that's a good part of the healing process is when you start to look at yourself and tell yourself it's be gentle, give yourself some grace.
I think my therapist helped me with that a lot, because I would think perhaps we should have moved to a different city, or um, when we moved from Florida, if we hadn't moved to Greenville, if we had moved somewhere else, or if we had done this differently, or if we had done rehab in this city instead of that city for Darth, or if we had done this program instead of that program, or something. And my therapist said, just because you had done something different doesn't mean you would have had a different outcome.
Mm.
And it just made me think, that's true. Um, so he kind of made me think about a different perspective. And that helped me kind of reframe that a little bit.
I like that. I do. Um, a few more things. We got maybe about 12 minutes. And I do want to get to a part where at the end, I want to ask you, give me a couple things that you're grateful for. And I'll explain that as we get to it. And then I want you to share again where they can find graphs and your information as well. You had talked about trying to maintain a regular schedule as possible, um, avoiding unrealistic expectations and goals for yourself, um, being able to find a support person or support people that you can trust and share honest and feelings and ideas. Is that where you are in your grieving process? As you said, it's not linear, and it's not. You may be in a different stage depending on where you are, depending on what triggers, what memories, what mood, what stimulates you. Does that regular schedule, regular routine, avoiding unrealistic expectations and goals for yourself, does that help where you are right now?
Yeah. Sometimes I'll feel overwhelmed. And if I feel overwhelmed, or if I feel uh, sad or depressed, if I feel like I just don't want to do anything that day, or I just feel like I can't do anything, um, Kevin will help me um, kind of set a schedule and say,
Hmm.
okay, do this, then do this, then do this. Like he'll help me outline what I'm going to do, sometimes hour by hour that day. Do this, then do this, then do this, and help me write it down and kind of create a schedule. And then I just follow the schedule. And then sometimes he'll help me outline the next 3 days or the next week. And then just following that schedule helps me stay in a routine. And then after I do that, then I might not need that for a little while. It kind of get me out of that rut. And then that just kind of helps me. Um, that's kind of something that is kind of a combination that helps me with the grief, and is kind of a coping strategy that has helped me with the bipolar as well. That kind of has been a coping strategy that helped me before Darth passed as well. So kind of both ways, but um, that's been helpful. And then with the grief, definitely a support system.
Yes.
Um, my therapist is somebody that I can talk to. Um, I have a couple close girlfriends that I can talk to, that I can call in the middle of the night if I need to, that I can talk to, that I can say anything that I want, and I don't need to feel um, that I need to censor what I say. Um, my parents, I can say anything I want to them, and they don't judge me for what I say. I can talk to Kevin about it. Um, I have a friend, a male friend who has gone through um, loss as well, and I can talk to him, and he's also non-judgmental and listens to what I say. So just having those people who understand, and then also I do an online peer support group for people who've lost through opioid use,
Hmm.
um, and that's been more helpful than I anticipated. They meet once a month, and it's been amazing. I've learned that Darth is more similar to other individuals who have passed than I anticipated. I was really surprised about that because I thought um, Darth's roller coaster that he went on
Hmm.
wasn't as unique as I thought, or um, Darth had really amazing qualities, or was really generous and loving, or really creative. Um, Also had some negative aspects as well. Um, but just some of those dichotomies and some of those strengths were shared by some of their loved ones too. So being able to see other people with some similar experiences and their uh, deep love uh, for their loved ones as well. So I really like that support group too.
That sounds like a fantastic support system that you have, that you've put together for yourself and for others. Um, would y'all ever celebrate or get together to do like a celebration of life for y'all lost ones? I'm just curious to if that's something that would ever materialize as, hey, listen, we are doing a celebration of life, like how they light the like the little balloons or little candles, little lanterns. I don't know. Just sometimes it's we and this gets back to my give me a couple things you're grateful for. And the reason I mentioned that is because sometimes I know for me, I can always focus on what I don't, and I don't focus on what I do have, the blessings that I have. So I always hold on to a couple things that I'm grateful for. And the reason I said that celebration of life could be something is okay, we're gonna, yes, they the way they are not here anymore hurts, but we gonna celebrate their life, the people that we knew who they were and how we loved them and who they loved us. Because I feel like when I go speak and I talk to people and for myself, I was like, hey, what's up? What are you grateful for? Because depression will come, guilt and shame, grief will come, loss will come, triggers will come, that urge will come. So what can ground you and keep you so you can get to the support system, so you could pick up the phone call? What trick or tricks or do you have in your first aid kit? I call it, because I was in the military, so I call it my first aid kit to get you to the triage. And what I mean the triage is the support groups, the psychiatrists or psychologists picking up that phone and be like, hey, I'm going through it. I need you. I just need to cry. I just need to talk. Or I just miss my son. I miss my daughter. I miss my baby. What is that thing that holds you? For me, is first and foremost God of my understanding, who I choose to call God, for just allowing me the opportunity to do this, and being of service. Like those are two things that keeps me grounded. My children, my kids, my dad, helping him with the grass, cut the grass, get some sun on my face, holding my wife's hand. Those things a hot shower. Those things I'm very grateful for, because I took them for granted and they were taken away from me. Um, So would ever materialize that y'all start maybe every twice a year? Hey, we're gonna have a celebration of life event, or it ain't gonna take maybe but 15 minutes, but we're gonna celebrate life. If anyone wants to say a few words, I mean, I don't know. I just
Great
yeah,
idea. I
yeah,
love that.
yeah.
Yeah.
I, I just
And
think yeah.
when Darth passed, we didn't have a funeral. We had a celebration of life for Darth because
Thank you.
same thing. I was like, no, we're not doing a funeral, and I like that celebration of life as well.
Yes, thank you. Me too. I love celebration of life. Like let's celebrate the life, and in the good times, and I love that. Yes, um, just something to think about. That be another way to get people together and talk. What real quick? Um, what are a couple things that you're grateful for today, Miss Karen?
Um, now that we're on that topic, I'm really thankful for the celebration of life that we had for Darth.
Mhm.
Uh, when he passed, I didn't want to do anything, honestly, because I thought it was so negative, like the experience of the overdose. He was at a point in his life where I was convinced at that particular point of his life that he was either going to be in jail or overdose. At that point in his life, he was just really far gone at that point. There wasn't a good turning point. I was hoping he would go to jail because there'd be hope that he would stop the drugs at that point. We had been working with him, and he wasn't acknowledging there was a problem, and he was just really going downhill. And so when he overdosed, I was like, all right, I don't know who would come. Um, what I just so when we had the celebration of life, it was really amazing who all went and all the positive things people said. and how wonderful it was to hear all the great things that people shared about Darth. And my husband and I really loved it. Um, so I'm really thankful for that. That was a real big positive for me. So I'm thankful for that. Um, and I'm thankful that um, we know other people who have lost uh, young adults in their lives, and the parents um, have not been able to move forward.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm not saying that we're, you know, uh, but I didn't want that to happen to us. Um, and so I'm thankful that um, uh, I'm thankful that we're continuing to live our lives with our son,
Hmm.
and that uh, Darth is still a part of our lives,
Absolutely.
um, but that we're continuing to make a difference in the world.
I believe he would appreciate that. I believe he does appreciate that. I do. I really strongly believe that he appreciates that, and um, I do. I really, really do. And I love you very much, Miss Karen. I do. You and your family. Um, that's the love from one person to another. Um, I just wanted to share that with you. It was told to me to just to share that with you, that I love you, and we're stronger together. So we're always stronger together. And I'm very grateful for you being up here today. I know this again took a lot of courage and a lot of strength, and I commend you for that. And I'm honored for you to share your experience, strength, and hope and your testimony here today on Play the Tape. Real quick, one more thing.
I love you and I love your strength. So I'm hoping to get your strength, uh, so that as I continue to speak, this is only the second time I've ever spoke. I told you I spoke at Walter B. Jones, and now I
Hmm.
spoke with you, and I'm hoping to gain your strength so that as I continue to speak about Darth and grasp and things like that, I can um, garner your strength and continue to become a stronger speaker like you.
You will. You will. It will take time. Like you said, it will take time. Uh, but I suggest if you do get those opportunities, if you're ready, of course, talk it over with your husband and your family, and like, okay, this is what I do. And it does take time to build up that courage to go in and be vulnerable and transparent with people and let people see your humanity. It's but it's healing. I say that. It is very healing. And we've done a lot of that today, for you, for me, and for people watching and listening. Uh, Real quick, give them um, the information again where they can find Grasp and all that information, your website, your phone number. You don't have to give out your website phone number, but give out the information that you stated before. Yes, ma'am.
Yep. The website is grasphelp.org, and you'll be able to look up the chapter. You'll see where to look it up in North Carolina, the Pitt County chapter. And my name is Dr. Karen Boytecki. You'll see my name by the chapter, and it has my cell phone number and my email address, which is karenboytecki@gmail.com. And you can call me, text me, email me, and I'm happy to talk to you. And the meetings are the first Thursday of every month from 6 to 7. And just give me a call, and I'll be able to contact. We'll be able to connect about the meetings.
Awesome. Listen, Miss Karen, it has been a blessing. It's been a privilege, and it's been an honor to talk to you today, interview you today, and come up here and share your testimony. I appreciate that. Again, I love you very much, and we got to stay in contact. Yeah,
Yes, yes,
absolutely. So, listen, until next time, I will talk to you soon. You have a good day.
great. Thank you. You too.
Bye bye. Listen, that's what we do here at Play the Tape. Another fantastic episode. I am so blessed and so thankful to be here. Listen, I love you. We love you. But most importantly, God loves you. With peace comes understanding. With understanding comes love. With love comes hope. With hope comes faith. And with faith comes recovery. And when I say recovery, it's not exclusive to just mental health or substance use disorder. Recovery could be inspirational change moving forward. Like I mentioned, me and just going to go help my dad cut the grass is recovery for me. A hot shower, a good meal, a roof over my head is recovery. Holding my wife's hand, kissing my children, that's recovery. Whatever that is for you, as long as it's positive change and moving you forward, that's recovery. And that's what we do here at Play the Tape. Listen, I love y'all so much. And until next time, peace.